Stinger transitions are really popular among streamers and content creators. Now, you don't need fancy software to make these. You can actually make killer stingers in Blender, and I'm going to show you how. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the objects we don't need in the scene. I'm going to set up the camera. So you want to set the location of the camera to X0, Y0, and Z0 with an X rotation of 90, Y of 0, and Z of 0. I'm just going to drag the camera back, maybe -20. Doesn't make a lot of difference. Now, if we go into the camera settings, we're going to change this to orthographic. This is so that we get a nice flat image with no distortion from the lens or anything like that. So there's three key parts to a stinger: start, middle, and end. The start has to be transparent, the end has to be transparent, and the middle has to be completely covering the scene. Now, whatever that image is that you want on the screen, it doesn't matter as long as it's completely 100% covering it, because this is the point that you will transition from one scene to another seamlessly. So let's start. We can add in a circle and rotate it on the X by 90, and we can press F to fill. And we don't even care that it's an end-gon. We just don't care. In object mode, Control 2 to add a subdivision modifier just to make the edges nice and smooth. So the render engine's Eevee because it's nice and fast. We don't need anything else. We need to make sure the film is set to transparent, and we're going to render this at 60 frames per second. You can do 30 if you wish. And we're going to aim to have this as a 2-second stinger, so we're going to set this to 120 frames. Right, so that's the basic setup. So let's start with this circle. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this to the middle of the transition. I'm going to scale this circle so it completely covers the camera viewport. And we're going to set a scale keyframe there. And then we're going to move back to the first keyframe, and we're going to scale 0 to make it completely disappear, and set another keyframe. So when we play the animation through, it will grow. And so at the middle of the animation, it'll completely be covering the screen there, which is great. So we should probably make a nice material for this. So set up a new material, and you just want to actually change your shader to emission. And then we're going to pick a nice color that we like. Maybe do it a nice blue, for example. And I'll just change over to shaded mode in the viewport just so that we can see the colors nicely. Doesn't really matter what color this is, just pick one that you like. A nice pink if you want. Yeah, let's go with this nice pink color, probably about there, perhaps. There we go. I like that. Big fan of this color. Okay, so we've got this covering the screen. So the next thing we want to do is let's add in another circle, for example. We need to rotate this on the X90 again. We're going to do a similar kind of process. We're going to move to the end of the animation, and we're going to scale this up so it completely is outside the viewport, just like that. And then we're going to keyframe that with I and scale, and we're going to scrub right back to about, say, maybe 30 frames. And then we're going to scale 0 again, and then I. And so what we have now is a second object which is scaling just after the first one. So we play that at real time, we can see that. So that's the basis of the transition. So what we can do is for the second one, we can make another new material, and we'll just call this reveal. I guess it doesn't matter. And what we want to do is we want to change this shader. So we also want to make this one an emission as well. And we're just going to bring this forward a little bit on the y-axis, just to there. Okay, into edit mode, F for face, and Control 2 to add that subdivision modifier on there. Right, so what we're going to do is we want to add in another shader, and this shader is going to be a holdout shader, and we need to add a mix shader. Pop that in there, pop the holdout in there. So if you're not familiar with the holdout shader, this actually is a shader which is, think of it as just transparency. It shows the area of that object as transparent, so it will hide everything behind it, but it will still show things in front of it. It's really cool and little nifty shader, and I'm literally looking for more places where I can use this shader in, just because it's so awesome and just love the idea of it. Right, next thing we want to do is we want to add in another texture, and we're going to add in a gradient texture. And we want to change it to spherical. We're going to add some mapping nodes in there with Control T and change the texture coordinate output from the generated, which is the default, to object, and just feed that straight into the mapping. And then we're going to take the FAC output, and then we're going to add a color ramp, and then we're going to plug the color output into the FAC. So we can see there, we've got a nice little dot. So if we change this to constant, we can now control the size of that center circle, you see, which is awesome. So we're going to add a few more points in here. You can add as many or as few as you like, and we're just going to alternate between black and white with these. Probably add another one in there. There we go. It would help if I targeted the correct one. There we go. It's a bit of a bullseye looking thing, but you can adjust these, get a bit of randomness in there, just like that. So I'm going to change this emission color to match the background, and what you can do is you can hover over a color and just press Control C. It doesn't give you any visual feedback, but you can do it, and then hover over the color and Control V, and it will give you that color. So now we've got this kind of like matching circle in the middle. Okay, so we're going to bring it over to the 30 keyframe where we started to scale the circle up. So we can sort of maybe see them about here. So what I'd probably do is I'm going to keyframe all of these white ones at frame number 30. I'm just going to adjust these. I'm just going to bring it to the final frame of the animation, and I'm just going to adjust gradient, and I'm going to keyframe it. Same for this one. Keyframe that. Finally, I'm going to push this one right out here. Frame that one. That's going to go back to frame 30. No, I think I'll leave it like that, actually. Do I want? I'm indecisive right now. This is me in indecisive mode. I'm just debating whether to animate black or not. Maybe if I just like animate just this one on frame 30, bring this to frame 120, bring this right down here, keyframe that, and then we can, let's see how that looks. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is just increase this a little bit more and reset the scale of that. And there we go. Look at that. So you would start yourself on like one scene at this point. Okay, yeah, so one thing I need to actually do is, so you see here, there's no point there where the screen is completely covered, and that's not what we're looking for. So all we need to do, bring this down a bit. There we go. So now everything's covered at that point. Let's just play that. There we go. It's nice and simple and straightforward. You don't need to have things overly complicated. Just keep them nice, simple, and subtle, because people aren't going to be paying too much attention to them. You want to get it to the point where people don't really notice them. If people don't notice them, then you know you've done a good job, because if they're paying attention to them, it means they're either really bad or overly complicated. But it adds a nice effect. So yeah, the next thing you need to do then is you need to export this. So you suppose you could do it as a PNG sequence if you wanted. So we need to have the file format FFmpeg video with RGBA selected. The container you need to set to WebM, and the video codec WebM/VP9, and then you just render it out. So there we go. Super easy. You can literally do whatever you want. You want to stick your logo in there, you stick your logo in there. You want something that's a little bit more 3D, go for that. You know, you don't have to keep things 2D like this. You can have multiple objects, you can have particle effects, everything. Just remember the key components of the transition are starts completely transparent, finishes completely transparent, and there's a point within the transition where it is completely covered by your images. You don't need to be one solid color, it can be like everything, but so long as there's no transparency at one certain point. So if you have any thoughts, or if you've done this before, or if this is something you're going to do, let me know in the comments. If you want more Blender content in general, hit that thumbs up button and YouTube will push more Blender content to you. If you want to see more content from me specifically, then hit that subscribe button, and when I upload something new, Blender will push that content to you if you think that you're going to enjoy it. So hopefully I will see you guys in the next one.